Hi, I'm Christopher Warnock of Renaissance Astrology, and today I'm going to do a comprehensive look at all the books that are published by Renaissance Astrology. So, the vast majority of these are available both in paperback and Kindle, and I'm going to indicate, whether they're not, and they're also available from Amazon and directly from the printer Lulu. As far as the paperback versions of it, Kindle obviously is only available from Amazon. Uh, as in the page, you can see links to every single book, to our book page on Renaissance Astrology that explains the pricing, how to obtain the books, and all the practicalities about actually getting a copy of the books. So let me start off with talking about the sort of, we'll break them down into sort of types. Um, and we'll start off with the introductory books. One of the things that I want to be clear about, though, is that I think there's this sort of idea, and this is one of the things that we have increasing amounts of information, increasing ease of obtaining information, and sort of velocity of things flying around. There's this tendency to think that everything can be picked up by reading, and everything can be picked up quickly. And my view is that medieval Renaissance astrology is not something you can pick up by reading a book, any more than you could learn to swim by reading a book, learn how to be a carpenter by reading a book. It's just not possible. Uh, Books, however, are very useful, I think, for an overview, an introduction, just to kind of get your feet wet, and then as reference books if you're taking a course or actually in practice. It's very useful to look stuff up. And I still, to this day, for example, have a copy of Lily's Christian Astrology, which is the primary horary text. And if I'm running across an area that I'm not as familiar with, or has some unusual questions or whatever, I just want to review things, I will look stuff up in Lily to see what he says, to basically remind myself about the practice, or to get some more depth. So I think you really never outgrow the need for books. At the same time, just got to recognize what they're, I guess, in my opinion, what you can do with a book. It's that you're only going to get surface theoretical knowledge from a book. You need to dive deeper, and you really need a teacher, and you also need a lot of practice. So let's start off with the first book. This is probably what I would recommend to people if they're just, again, interested in an introductory book, just want to find out a little bit about medieval Renaissance astrological magic, medieval Renaissance astrology in general. This is a good one to start with. This is our Secrets of Planetary Magic. Okay, and so this book is it makes extensive use of traditional sources. All my books are basically heavily based on traditional sources. This explains how to use planetary hours for timing, for making planetary talismans. So it just deals with the talismans of the planets, and really doesn't. It's really focused on planetary hours. Also includes planetary ritual, and then a bunch of images that you can use to make paper talismans. And then gets into a discussion of planetary rulership and some of the other, zodiac and things like that that you kind of need just as a background. This is a text, or the text, basically, for the Planetary Magic MiniCourse, and also for the full Astrological Magic Course. I just want to mention the mini courses. Nice sort of adjunct to the book. Give you some more something to work with. Gets a little more in depth in the book. Still, like I said, introductory. The mini courses are really a great way to get your feet wet, get sort of initial exposure to medieval Renaissance astrology and astrological magic, get a sort of a sense of how my courses work. And then it's a good way to see if you really want to dive in and take the full Astrological Magic Course. And so the full Astrological Magic Course really goes into depth, teaches all the astrology, medieval astrology, Renaissance astrology you need to do, full chart elections for talismans. It explains how to create talismans of the planets, manages the moon, fixed stars, constellations, decade phase talismans, and house-based talismans, how to do consecration ritual, and gives the whole philosophical and worldview basis that you really need to kind of come to grips with this. So, essentially, as we're going to go through with these various books, the Astrological Magic Course, the full course, explains how to use the books. You read a book and say, okay, now what do I do? That's what the Astrological Magic Course is all about. And then you have a teacher. As you work through the course, work through the lessons, and do the homework, I'm available for any questions necessary, in my opinion, to finish the homework lessons. And that really focuses things. So if you're having a problem with the homework, you can check with me, and then I can help you through that. And that's really invaluable. So again, Secrets of Planetary Magic, like I said, this is the most basic book. This is what I recommend if you just want to get an introductory book and kind of get your feet wet. But again, it doesn't teach the whole range of planetary magic or anything all by itself. Okay, so let's take a look at let's take a look at the next book, which is the Mansions of the Moon. So Mansions of the Moon is, not surprising, a book about the Mansions of the Moon, the 28 Mansions of the Moon in medieval Renaissance astrology. And in this, we're going to use timing by the moon in the mansions. So there's an ephemeris provided there, and there's also extensive appendices of traditional sources, names. There's lots of different names of the mansions that correlates all of them. Lots of really useful information. The book itself contains complete information on how to create mansion talismans, the effects of the mansion, so you can decide which one you want to make, images that you can use for the paper talismans, and then ritual, consecration, etc., etc. Basically, again, a complete introduction to how to use a Mansion of the Moon. This is the text for a Mansion of the Moon mini course. Again, if you're going to take this a little further, if you want to do full chart elections, you're going to need to be in the Astrological Magic Course. Essentially, this is the sort of the intro. I have 2 lessons on mansions in my Astrological Magic Course. This is sort of the intro lesson that's been kind of excerpted and taken out. But again, nice way to kind of get your feet wet. The mini course is also kind of a nice adjunct. If you have a magical practice or you want to just add the mansions in, and certainly making the mansions, the moon in the mansions is fine. Not as powerful as a full chart election, but it's certainly a lot easier to learn how to do. Again, good introduction. So then the next book, and this one is available. I'm going to show you these. There's both a paperback and a hardcover version. I'll show you the hardcover version a little as I'm going through this. Fixed Star, Sign, and Constellation Magic. So this is an introduction to the magic of the fixed stars and constellations, as well as zodiac sign talismans in medieval astrology. For this one, you do need to be able to do full chart elections. So there's not a separate mini course for it. There's really not. There's some various software. I think Astral app has a fixed star. It doesn't have constellations. And it doesn't do the full range of stuff that you learn in the Astrological Magic Course. So this is a text for the Astrological Magic Course. What this covers are all 15 of the Behenian fixed stars from Horizon, the 15 fixed stars, plus 15 constellations. And then, again, if you know how to do full chart elections, how to elect times, how to create the talismans, and then images and ritual. And you can sort of see, let me just give some examples of the images. Dan Belgatti, that's a black and white. And then you can see the sigils from 3 sources there. So you could just, again, scan this out of the book and use this to make a paper talisman. As always, all of our courses and books and everything, these are intended for you to make talismans, basically paper talismans for your own personal use, okay? Sometimes people say, how do I make metal talismans? I mean, I don't know how to make metal talismans. You need to have a workshop. You need to have a furnace that goes up to 2,000 degrees, melting molten metal, all sorts of stuff like that. Very specialized thing, and not something that you could easily teach or learn how to do. Again, like I said, I don't know how to do it. And then in terms of the use of them, it's for personal use. I mean, if you want to make someone and give it to your friend or loved one or something like that, it's fine. These are not to make for commercial use. You can't just buy the book and start cranking out talismans and selling them. That's you'd be violating copyright and violating the requirements of the course. But certainly the paper talismans, it's doable. Okay, this is the key. I mean, if you say a talisman, if you think a talisman has to be metal, precious metal, then that means you can't make talismans. But that's just not true. I mean, you can make talismans out of all sorts of different materials. You can follow the traditional materials if you want. Again, that becomes difficult to make. I mean, if you want to do an algal talisman, for example, you're supposed to use diamond. You can't engrave diamonds. It's just not possible. So people look at that and give up. You can make a very effective paper talisman for algal, for any other fixed star. So again, what I would say about this is great if you want to kind of get your feet wet, take a look at this, read about it. If you really want to learn how to use it, you really need to take this as an adjunct with my full Astrological Magic Course, unless you already know how to do full chart elections. And let me just show you what the color version looks like. These are quite gorgeous. Again, this is the same Dan Belgatti, but this one's in color. Absolutely gorgeous. Nigel Jackson color talisman images. Let me just show you another one here. Here, for example, this is Procyon. Absolutely gorgeous. This is a print on demand. So again, it looks nice, beautiful illustrations. One of the things about printed on demand, though, is that, again, they're not the most fancy binding. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I mean, the only way to do this economically, I mean, is just if you did the old school where you're doing hand-bound leather stuff, you'd be spending $50,000 on getting it done. It would sit in storage, and you'd probably never you'd lose money on it. These make it actually possible. It can be keep in print forever. They never go out of print. Again, the model with the old one was sell them as fast as possible so they go to print, and then you jack up the price on the resale. These are always available. The color one is available from Lulu directly, not on Amazon. But gorgeous color illustrations of the fixed stars and constellations. So check that out. So then the final book of sort of introductory or non-translation books is my book, The Celestial Way. And this is my explanation of how to use traditional astrology and astrological magic as part of a spiritual path. Starts out with a discussion of worldview, and then astrological magic historically in both Eastern and Western spiritual paths, and then my devotional practice of astrological magic, what that involves philosophically, and then practically too. So I have lots of examples of devotional ritual, devotional practices like planetary charity and the daily planetary practice. So really, my focus in my spiritual path has basically been a wisdom path. What I'm providing in this celestial way is what's called a bhakti path or devotional path, which is a really important balance. If you're in a wisdom path, it can get kind of arid, and get kind of philosophical and be in your head. The devotional practice is very much about love and devotion, which is very useful. Can stand alone as a spiritual practice, but is also useful with that. So not a methodology of how to become enlightened through astrological magic, because I don't have a way to do that as yet, or maybe probably never. But certainly very useful as a devotional practice, and very useful as a way of connecting to the planets and all the celestial spirits. Certainly a way of punching up, I think, the power of your astrological magic, and also a different approach from a purely magical or effect-based approach. Focuses on developing the relationship with the celestial angels, which again can have great benefits, but the benefits are not it's like a friendship. If you become friends with somebody just to get stuff from them, it's not going to work very well. If you become good friends with somebody, you're not worried about how much stuff you get from them, it can often be very beneficial, even in a material way. So that's exactly what I would say about the devotional practice. But again, people talk about spirituality, but don't have a very concrete way of actually, other than just saying the word and it means good, don't have a very concrete way of actually putting the astrology or astrological magic in effect for a spiritual path. This gives a way to do that. So again, very useful, I think. And hopefully somebody following in my footsteps will figure out how to do straight up theurgic astrological, like a tantra, Western tantra of astrological magic, and achieve enlightenment through that. So that's, everyone's got that to look forward to the next 50 or 100 years if we're still around. So now let me talk about the various translations. We have a number of different translations published by Renaissance Astrology, all on astrological magic, all from our traditional sources, all extremely important text and very useful for the advanced astrological magician. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Astral High Magic, and this is a translation by John Greer of De Imaginibus of Thabadim and Kura. Now, Thabadim and Kura was a Haranian Sabian, worshippers of the Hermes Trismegistus and the Celestials. And this book gives a lot of detail about how to make house-based talismans. Now, house-based talismans are the most difficult talismans to make. I mean, typically you might be dealing with 3, 4, 5 factors. These will posit, 8, 9, 10, 12, up to 15 factors. Generally not possible to get to 15. You can get, if you play your cards right, do the election, maybe get 10, 12. You're doing really well, have a very powerful talisman. House-based talismans, again, require a pretty high level of astrological skill. You need to be able to do full chart elections. So this is a text in my full Astrological Magic course, and the sort of stuff you get to in the higher and more advanced lessons of the Astrological Magic course. So very useful. This was extensively used by Agrippa in 3 books of occult philosophy. That's where a bunch of his house-based talismans come from. So this is really getting it straight from the source. Very useful. Again, if you're interested in house-based talismans and you're able to handle full chart elections, this would be a useful book. Again, I would highly recommend taking my course, and we cover these issues. What's interesting about these is that by the time students get to them, it basically drives them crazy. I mean, they really are quite difficult to do. So it gives you kind of a better attitude about people will poke holes at other people's elections. You say, when you try to do it yourself, you recognize how difficult it is and how skilled the ancient astrologers were to be able to do these type of talismans. So again, very useful text. So then the next text is De Quindecim Stellis, and this is a comprehensive translation by Regulus Hess of Hermes on the 15 Fixed Stars, which was the key source for all fixed star magic and fixed star talismans in the medieval and Renaissance period. This circulated in manuscript. There were a number of variant texts. So this contains all four of the main variant texts, as well as additional medieval and Renaissance variants, including Ficino and Agrippa. So this really is comprehensive. If you're serious about fixed stars, if you want to understand how the medieval Renaissance astrologers actually thought about them and used them, you've got to get a copy of this. This is absolutely key. Very useful book, excellent translation, I think. One of the things I love about this is all the variant sigils. And you can see all the different manuscripts. These are all different sigils. We've got about 6 different manuscripts and stiffs. Here's some more of the sigils. I just love all these different sigils. Very useful for your practice, and you can go through and say, oh, this one's intuitively resonates with me. This is the one I want to use. So again, very useful. Quindecim Stellis for fixed stars. So then the next translation is Celestial Gems and Sigils, again by Regulus Hess. This is a translation of some very ancient Hermetic texts, De Lapidus, which is on stones, and Liber Sigilorum, which is the book of sigils. A lot of the information here is the magical properties of gems and stones, but there's also, from an astrological magic standpoint, amazing number of talismans in here. We've got a lot of planetary talismans, as well as fixed star talismans, and particular constellation talismans. I mean, this is a great source, probably the original source in these various manuscript versions that they have for the constellation talismans that we have. These are basically coming from lapidaries, which are, as I said, magical properties of gems and stones, but increasingly took on astrological significance and then were used for astrological talismans. And I'll talk about, you can see how Picatrix goes and takes the images and astrological signification of, a particular, image or stone or whatever has the particular properties. It's ruled by Jupiter. Then Picatrix takes and says, oh, we can use this image for Jupiter. We're going to supercharge this. We're going to put in some much stronger astrological election conditions. So very interesting to see Picatrix doing that, because it's the same process that I instinctively did myself, and I talk about that in my commentary here. But another thing that's cool about this is it contains Warnock's Grimoire of the 7 Planets. Again, these are extracted all from our sources, and then you can see they have sigils and symbols here. These are images that were done by very talented artists for us, new images based on the traditional sources, and then that can be used to make paper talismans. And we've actually gone ahead, you can see this eagle talisman, we've actually gone ahead and made these Jupiter Cancer eagle talismans. So really gorgeous talismans that we'll have available soon at Renaissance Astrology. Again, very useful text, Celestial Gems and Sigils. Again, if you're serious about astrological magic, you need to have a copy of this, because this is basically one of the root sources for a lot of the talismans in our traditional sources, particularly, like I said, constellation talismans. And this is another text in, it's actually not a text in the Astrological Magic Course. It should be, but this is one that if you're in the Astrological Magic Course, I highly recommend that you get a copy of it. As I revise the Astrological Magic Course, I'm probably going to be including this as a text because of the importance of it. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. This is probably the most important book that we published, Renaissance Astrology. This is the complete Picatrix. Picatrix is obviously the most important text of medieval Renaissance astrological magic, the most important astrological magic grimoire. Lots of talisman recipes in it, but there's also a lot of philosophical explanations of how astrology and astrological magic work. This is much more than a standard grimoire. It's much thicker. I mean, it's just a couple hundred pages. And certainly it was a key text for all medieval and Renaissance astrological magicians. Ficino, Agrippa, William Lilly, they all used it. This is the most important text for them. So again, got to have a copy of this if you're serious about astrological magic. So we have a whole bunch of different editions. It tends to be a little confusing for people. Which one should I get? What I can tell you is that you're going to be doing great with any of the editions of it. They all have the same basic, complete text of Picatrix of the 4 books. The differences are basically coming about from formatting. Maybe the color is different, maybe the font is different. A few of them have some additional text, but there's not. They're all going to contain, again, the same basic complete text of Picatrix, and you're going to be doing well with all of them. This is the standard, what I would say the standard edition. This is the black book in paperback called the Libra Atratus. Again, Latin for black book. This is available on Amazon and also from Lulu, the printer directly. You can see on the link to the Picatrix page. Also, is available in Kindle edition. Now, because of the vagaries of the way that Amazon does the pricing, we had to split it into 2 books. It's actually cheaper that way to have it in 2 books. Again, the way the weird pricing is. But there's a volume 1 which has books 1 and 2, and then volume 2 which has books 3 and 4. So you want to get both of those if you're going to get the Kindle to have the complete Picatrix. So I'm going to show you also, this is the hardcover, this is the illustrated Picatrix. Cool, it's black and white illustrations. Let me just show you these in the back. These, for example, these are the Mansion of the Moon. There's 28 Mansion of the Moon, 28 beautiful Nigel Jackson black and white Mansion of the Moon illustrations. We also have, there's some planetary. This is Mercury. So this is, again, printed on demand. So again, nice dust jacket. Recognize that, again, not the most expensive hand-sewn leather binding. I mean, this is a standard print-on-demand binding. It's not bad. I mean, somebody was ranting on the Amazon page about, how upset they were about it and how dare someone publish this at such a high cost and not give them a hand-sewn leather binding. Now, let me just tell you, the cost of this, I think it's $60 on Amazon. Right off the bat, $30 of that is going to Amazon, and $20 of that is going to the printer. So John Greer and I split it, so we get $5 for this. Okay, so it's not exactly like this somehow idea that I'm like profiteering or something. It's no, that money's all being taken by Amazon. And again, the beauty of print on demand is it'll never go out of print. You always have a copy of it. And I think the quality is quite reasonable. I mean, if your expectation was hand-sewn leather, I mean, we had some leather ones that we were doing the bindings for, and those were like $2,000. Okay, and so that's kind of the price point that you'd be looking at if you're trying to look at that. The other thing I would say about it is that I think that the hardcover is nice. It's going to wear better than the paperback. It's nice to have the illustrations, and that's going to something that's going to be you're going to preserve longer. I'm not really a book fetishist. I mean, I don't collect books. Just to have the books on my shelf, or for collecting purposes. I'm interested in the information. So again, if you're like put off by the print on demand or whatever for the hardcover, just go ahead and get the paperback. I mean, the information is the same there. Now we have a couple more editions. These are limited editions. They're not widely available. This is the green book, the Libra Viridis. This is made specifically for our green magic course. This is available only from the printer Lulu. We also have the Libra Rubeus, which is a red book, and these are uniquely made. I don't have a copy of them because each person who orders one gets a unique copy. Only initiated with the moon in the 5th mansion, hardcover with a sort of it's red, like I said, with a sort of danse macabre, motifs throughout the book. Lots of skulls and stuff like that. Very cool looking. And then the final one we have, again, I don't have a copy of it because it's unique, is a color illustrated Picatrix. These are 8.5 by 11. Gorgeous, full color, amazing illustrations in it. It looks totally gorgeous. Each one of those editions is individually made and printed for the owner, and they have a special dedication page. You can have it dedicated to you or the person you're giving it to. So gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. You can take a look at the PDFs. Again, for both the color illustrated Picatrix and Libra Rubeus, you can get more information, see what they look like, learn more about them. In fact, all the books there are linked on the page there. You can see what they all look like. The thing about Picatrix that I would say is, again, people will buy the book and they'll look at it once and then they're like, I don't know what to do with this. That's what the Astrological Magic Course is for. I mean, you basically need the entire course to give you enough background in the whole philosophy and worldview, and as well as the astrology, and then all sorts of other useful stuff in order to actually make use of it. So the Astrological Magic Course in a lot of ways is just how do I use Picatrix. The other thing I would say about Picatrix is there's a tendency for people that think they know what they're doing or have a little bit more knowledge of astrology to take it as a rule book. and they'll say, Picatrix says. It's like, you got to recognize Picatrix says a lot of things, okay? Picatrix is a compilation of over 200 books. And there was never any effort by the author or compiler to kind of put all these things together. Then there's contradictory, and you have one section that'll say to make a moon talisman, make it with the moon rising, and then you have another section saying when you're doing elections, don't have the moon rising. And so what people do with that is they have to ignore one or the other if they're going to have a rule-based. They'll pretend that we'll just forget about that. Oh, it's bad to have the moon rising. What about this other section? What I recognize about Picatrix is that it's a compilation of a lot of books, and that, again, you need to see the essence of what they're doing. And I tend to approach it on a modular basis, so I'll look at each chapter, each section separately, and a lot of times you can see how they work together. And rather than, if you tried to apply all 50 rules, 500 rules in Picatrix on every election, you'd never be able to do anything. So what you have to do is either consciously or unconsciously decide what's key and what's important, what you're going to look at and what you're not going to look at. But again, looking at Picatrix as a rule book, you're going to get confused, you're going to make mistakes, and it's good to zap on other people with, but if you actually want to make talismans, it's going to block you in terms of being able to do any talismans. And again, this is the sort of stuff we get into in the advanced portions of the course, explaining how to extract the essence, what factors are important or what are not, and then to recognize, again, a lot of that times it's a preference matter, and so you don't go around saying, well, he has a different philosophy about how to apply that, so he's bad. Recognizing that there are within the tradition a lot of ways to go about doing this, but what is working within the tradition. So again, that's what I think is useful about Picatrix, is it's got so much information, really gives us a deep dive into it, and then with the addition of the course and the knowledge of medieval Renaissance astrology that you can get from the course, and that I got basically from the other work and study that I've done, you're able to really understand the essence of it, work with it in a really hands-on way, and not in a frozen way either. You can do some adaptation, you can do some synthesis without losing the string of the tradition, but without being frozen or being unable to make that. So again, the books are really helpful, I think, in terms of as like I said, for reference books, as part of a course, by themselves, it's interesting to get an overview. I mean, for example, I totally respect alchemy. I've read some interesting books by practicing alchemists, lab alchemists, that have been very useful in sort of giving me an overview. I would not in any way, shape, or form say I understand alchemy on a deep level, and I certainly don't practice it. But I think from the standpoint of just sort of getting your feet wet, can be very useful. So wanted to kind of go through those. I've got two more books that don't sort of fit into those above categories I just want to mention briefly. The first is this Secrets of Planetary Ritual. This is basically the Huronian, Sabian planetary rituals, which are incredibly long and useful ritual for any kind of planetary consecration or invocation, found in Book 3, Chapter 7 of Picatrix, but they're formatted in a sort of large text, you can see, for you to read. Okay, so you just take this book out and actually read it for the ritual. That's what this is meant to be used for. And then the final book that I want to mention is, this is not Astrological Magic, but it's Warnock's Horary Case book. This is the text that's necessary for my horary course. What this does, it has a whole bunch of actual horary questions asked to me by clients, the chart, my written analysis that I wrote before I knew the outcome, just based on the chart, and then the outcome. Very useful for students. You can take a look at the questions, you can do your own analysis, you can look at my analysis, and you can see what the actual results are. So super practical, very useful for students. So I hope you find that very useful. As I said, this is really a comprehensive look at all the Renaissance Astrology books. And if you're interested, again, check out the individual links, and there's also a link to the whole book page. As you can see, this incredible range of books, very useful. Check these out. Hope you're inspired to get some of these books and also to take the courses that they're the course books for.